Karabatsas. I'm the Western Regional Leader for Dining for Women. And I'm just so pleased to see so many people here. The last evening of a road trip that Marsha and I have been doing, starting in Northern California, visiting as many chapters as we could along the way. For some of you that are new, Dining for Women is in its 11th year. It started in Marsha's home at a birthday dinner that was a potluck, and she and her friends decided, why don't we take our dining out dollars and use the money we would have spent had we eaten in a restaurant and donate it to a worthy cause. And that basically was the birth of Dining for Women. Marsha lives in Greenville, South Carolina, but was born in New Mexico. She went to college in South Carolina and became a registered nurse. Marsha's a mother, a wife. She's got 4 children. She's a grandmother, a philanthropist, a community activist, and is co-founder and president of Dining for Women, among many other things that she does. She is probably one of the strongest, most humble women I have ever met. I remember one of the first times meeting her and talking about Dining for Women, and she was just like giddy, and it was infectious. Her actions, her convictions, her leadership, her dedication to Dining for Women and what the organization stands for is something that has inspired me and has certainly changed my life. Dining for Women has grown from this small little meeting in Marsha's living room to over 400 chapters, over 8,000 members throughout the United States and internationally, and impacting hundreds of thousands of women and girls throughout the world. And so together with you, I'd like to wish Marsha a warm welcome.
Oh, it's such a privilege to be here. It really makes my heart full to have a chance to talk about Dining for Women and share it with other people who are interested. How many people here have never been to a Dining for Women dinner before or are completely new? Okay. So I'll have some Dining for Women basics information so you'll understand how things work. And as Patty said, this is the last stop of the West Coast tour, and it's just really, really a privilege and an honor that you're willing to take time out of your busy schedules to be here to learn more about Dining for Women. I find statistics really impactful in conveying the need for support and investment for women around the world. So I want to share this statistic with you just to start off to highlight why the work of Dining for Women is so important. According to the World Bank's 2012 development report, 4 million women and girls each year disappear as a direct result of gender discrimination. And just to put that in perspective, 4 million people is the population of the state of South Carolina. Or I've been told that it's about the equivalent of the population of Los Angeles. So can you imagine just one day, 4 million people disappearing? And riding home from a meeting recently this week, someone said, ooh, that made me think about the Holocaust. And I hadn't thought about that either, but 4 million girls disappear every year. Dining for Women is a giving circle. Are any of you unfamiliar with the concept of a giving circle? Okay. A giving circle is a group of individuals who get together and learn about a need in their community or in an area that they're interested in impacting. and then they pool their donations, and they decide among all the needs that they educate themselves about what they want to support with their philanthropic dollars. So Dining for Women is a giving circle, and we're unique in that whereas most giving circles are a single group of individuals and they focus in their community and their money stays in their community, Dining for Women has chapters around the world, and our money is in our community, but it's our world. It's global. It's an international focus. So that makes Dining for Women unique among giving circles. But we're based on the concept of collective giving because each member of a Dining for Women chapter donates what they would have spent if they'd eaten in a restaurant at their monthly chapter meeting, and then we take all those donations from all those chapters that meet in any given month, and that collective amount is what makes our grant for that month. So we harness the power of collective giving. Each individual donation is average about $35, but when we collect them all together, we're donating between $55,000 and $60,000 per month. So it's a huge impact that we can have collectively, and no one single individual has to take too much of the burden. Through collective giving, Dining for Women inspires, educates, and engages people to invest in programs that create meaningful change for women and girls living in extreme poverty. Our vision is a world where millions of people's lives have been transformed and extreme poverty has been reduced because Dining for Women connected people in creative and powerful ways that assure gender equality. Gender equality is not what we focused on in the very beginning of Dining for Women. When we first got started, we were focusing on alleviating poverty for women and children around the world. But over the years and through the education that I've benefited from too, in learning about the situation for women and girls around the world, it is clear, thought leaders know, studies have proven, and we've seen over and over again, that global poverty cannot be addressed unless we address gender equality. When women have equal access to education and they go on to participate in economic activities in their communities, they become an engine for change, for eradicating global poverty. In fact, former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan says, "There's no development strategy more beneficial to society as a whole, women and men alike, than the one which involves women as central players." And so that is why we have chosen to call out the fact that we're focusing on gender equality as a way to address global poverty. And some of you may have seen President Jimmy Carter this week on the news. I hear he was on Charlie Rose and on the Colbert Report, and he's going to be at Barnes & Noble in Grove Park, the Grove, tomorrow. He's written a new book called A Call to Action, and the entire book is focused on the global scourge of gender discrimination and how important it is to address it. These four words, collaboration, education, inspiration, and transformation, embody Dining for Women's culture. In the very beginning, I always talked about, before I even was aware of organizational culture when I first started Dining for Women, I knew what I wanted it to be. I knew the energy that existed at meetings. I knew the passion that we felt, but I wasn't an organizational development specialist. I was a nurse, and I didn't think in terms of organizational development. And now I understand that what that Dining for Women DNA, the secret sauce, you know, what it was that made Dining for Women so special is our culture. And we've grown so much in the last 18 months since the NBC segment in 2012, and we are, you know, going through transitions organizationally in terms of hiring staff instead of having all volunteers, And we've become really aware that preserving the culture of Dining for Women is imperative, because we want to grow and grow and grow, because we want to raise more and more money to change more and more lives, but we don't want to lose the intimacy and the connection that makes the Dining for Women chapter so special. So we're really focusing on Dining for Women's culture. And so I'd like for you to think about, what is it that happens in your chapters that brings these to life? And what will that look like? I want you to understand how we articulate the culture, so you can think about it as you meet, and you can cultivate it in your chapters. I love this slide. This is our Dining for Women members at our 10th anniversary celebration in Greenville. And we are an inspired group. I'll tell you, Dining for Women chapters and Dining for Women members are inspired women, and we were just elated to be together. Moving into our second decade, we are using our collective voices to create more impact for global change. And in another 10 years, I would love to see a group 10 times this size. Just a recap, since 2003, when we first started, Dining for Women has raised $3.3 million for programs, just for programs. We have 422 chapters around the world. Most of them are in the U.S., 15 are in foreign countries. And we've committed to $641,515 in grants in 2014. That $614,516 represents 73,362 lives that will be impacted directly. Now, we know that's a projection based on the grant applications that we've gotten, and we know that every grant doesn't always get executed flawlessly, but still 73,000 lives directly impacted, and that doesn't even take into consideration the lives that those lives impact, right? So every one of those lives is a woman or a girl in a family, in a community, and when her life and her family's life is impacted, the ripple effect is just tremendous. And for $30 a month, that's what you can do. It's really, really exciting. So back to gender equality again. Why is gender equality so important, and how does it tie directly to global poverty? Okay, here's another really startling statistic. A girl in India is 5 times more likely to die before her 5th birthday than a boy. 5 times more likely to die before her 5th birthday. Okay, here's another gripping statistic. Close your eyes and just listen to this and try to imagine it. More women and girls have been killed in the last 50 years than all the men that were killed in all the world wars of the 20th century combined. More women and girls have been killed in the last 50 years than all of the men that have been killed in all the wars of the 20th century combined. It's about 163 million women and girls. And you say, well, how? How does that happen? Starting with sex-selective abortions, neglect. Girls are not valued, so they're neglected. They're not, if they get sick, they aren't the ones who get to go to the doctor. The boys are. Early marriage that results in early childbirth in young bodies that aren't ready for it. Maternal deaths, domestic violence, bride burnings, honor killings, sex trafficking, you name it. It's brutal to be a woman around the world. And, you know, in my experience, and part of what is so important to me, and I think why we make education such an important part of Dining for Women's mission, and what I hear over and over again from our members, is that the education is so important. We learn so much. at our meetings about challenges for women around the world, but yet how we can make a difference. So, in my experience, most people just really are not familiar with how pervasive and brutal gender equality is, and the impacts of it, and what really happens around the world. So why does that matter? Well, women are half of the population of the planet. And if they are valued and educated and given an opportunity, the solutions to many of the world's most difficult problems of overpopulation, poverty, and violence can be addressed. Because when a woman is educated, she has fewer children. When she has the ability to be empowered economically, she stabilizes her family, and that stabilizes the community, which helps stabilize the nation. And when you have economically stable nations, they're much less likely to get involved in conflict and wars. So you can make the connection between gender empowerment, gender equality, and world peace, right? So as Nicholas Kristof and Sheryl Wu Dunn say in their book, Half the Sky, women are not the problem, they're the solution. This chart illustrates Dining for Women's growth in program donations since 2003. And it's just a boring chart, but if you look at it in terms of what it symbolizes, it's very powerful. Because to me, that chart symbolizes the collaboration of Dining for Women and of all of us with the nonprofits, the dozens of nonprofits that we've supported over the years, the education and inspiration of all of our members, and the transformation that we all experience as a result of the education that we benefit from, and knowing that our donations are making a big difference in people's lives. And we do ask for follow-up reports from the projects that we fund, and what I would like to do is share with you 3 of the reports that we've gotten recently from programs that we funded, because that's what we really want to know, is what our dollars are doing. The first project I want to share with you is Starfish One by One, and this is an organization that works with indigenous Mayan girls in Guatemala. And in February of 2012, they got a grant for $47,382. The mission of Starfish One by One is to empower young women through mentorship and education to become leaders in their community. And you may remember, if you were part of Dining for Women at that time, we learned about the challenges that women in Guatemala face, the indigenous women in Guatemala. Most of the girls in this program have parents who have never been to school. Only 1 in 10 indigenous child, male or female, ever makes it to the 10th grade. And over 40% of the girls get married before their 18th birthday. And 93% of them never have any experience in formal work-related training of any kind. And so they are just stuck in this grind of early marriage, illiteracy, and poverty, and they don't ever get out of it. And they don't learn Spanish, which is really, they speak their indigenous language, but they have to learn Spanish too to be able to work and be economically empowered. So the thing that's exciting about this project, besides the success statistics I'm going to share with you, is that this program, when they submitted their grant to us, it was based on the outcomes of a successful pilot project that they had done that demonstrated it worked. So we were the first grant that they got to bring this program to life. So we really launched the program in Starfish One by One, which is called the Bridge Program. We supported scaling this project, which empowers the rural adolescent girls to overcome huge, huge obstacles. For the final 6 months of 2012, they served 76 students, and in the first part of 2013, that number increased to 120. They use peer support and mentorship to develop self-esteem, positive social relationships, and to identify their individual strengths. So some of the notable short-term results are that You know, before I said 93% of Guatemalan youths never get any professional work experience. Well, this project gave 50 professional internship opportunities to participants in this program. 84% of the students passed their grade, and these are all girls. 98% of them avoided pregnancy. 98% of them avoided marriage. And the retention rate was 93%. And the attendance rate throughout the 6 months was 99%. So these girls are starving for this information and support. 66% of Starfish graduates are studying at the university level. 85% of them are employed outside of the home. And based on the success of this project, the bridge is now an essential part of Starfish 1x1's program. And I'm so excited about that. I want to share with you a quote from Irma, who is one of the participants in the program. She says, "Education is something really important in my life because each day I learn new things that help to mold and change my life. My attitude and my way of thinking have become much more open and outgoing, and although I still encounter obstacles in my life, I'm now able to confront them with a positive attitude, which helps me move forward in a healthy way. Starfish has taught me that I can set goals and reach them if I plan and work hard." So go Irma. Go Starfish 1x1. Okay, the next project I want to share with you is called Her Turn. It's a project of the Nepal Teacher Training Institute, and in January of 2012 we gave them a grant for $48,369 that would be distributed over 2 years. And Her Turn is a girls' education and empowerment project for girls from the Sindulpachak district in Nepal. They emphasize team building, sisterhood, and they practice public speaking. They use interactive workshops to deal with issues to teach them about healthcare, nutrition, normal development of puberty, leadership skills, and advocacy. And the areas that they targeted specifically are areas that are at extremely high risk for girls being victims to sex trafficking. Their original proposal was that they would reach 200 girls, and in this follow-up report, they've reached 400. And they explain that the reason they could reach 400 instead of 200 was because the cost of food went down, and the currency rate changed from when they first submitted their application. So with the money, the increased money they were able to get, they could increase the number of girls that they serve. They reached 4 districts. No, they conducted workshops at 4 schools in this district, and there were 260 participants. And again, the attendance rate was 99%. I mean, these girls are so thirsting for this. Then, in addition to that, they were able to serve another 140 girls in the Gorkha district, where they learned that there was an unusually high number of girls under the age of 14 marrying voluntarily. So they went to investigate and execute their project in the Gorkha district, which they could do because they had this extra money they didn't anticipate. So some of the results of the grant that we gave them were, one principal claims that this program shifted the culture in their school. And I'm going to read a quote from that principal in just a minute. But to shift the culture of a school through a girls' empowerment project in Nepal is really amazing. The girls ended up taking what they learned in these classes back home. So they taught their parents improved nutrition and safe water hygiene and menstruation information. One of the mothers said she had always worried that she was bleeding too much and she didn't know exactly what was going on, and her daughter came home and taught her what she had learned in the class. So these girls are going home and they're actually transforming the health of their entire families with what they're learning. Another girl, sexual harassment is a real problem and for girls in school. So self-empowerment and self-advocacy is part of what this project teaches. One girl reported to her principal that she was being harassed. The offender was disciplined, separated from the group, and now the girl's grades have soared. And she has a completely renewed sense of, or not renewed, new sense of her individual power because she could speak out, and she never would have done that before. And the last example that they gave in the report was a girl whose parents were pressuring her to get married. And through this class, they learned that getting married before age 20 in Nepal is against the law. So she and the trainer from this class went and convinced her parents that no, she did not need to get married, and she has a job in Kathmandu. So, you know, those are anecdotal. This is an interim report. And I want to share with you two quotes. One is from a 13-year-old girl who says, "I think that her turn is important because it taught me not to be afraid of my period and that menstruation is a perfectly natural part of growing up. I also think it's very important for us to have learned about how to recognize sex traffickers. Before her turn, I think it would have been easy to have been lured by a trafficker." The principal that I was telling you about says, "I'm the principal of the Devi Secondary School. I've taught here for 24 years running. In 24 years, I've been unable to provide menstruation materials. I didn't realize how important it was. I thank her turn for shifting the culture in my school. Also in my 24 years, bullying, sexual harassment, and menstruation were never talked about formally with the students. Her turn has made me and my staff realize just how important talking about these things are. We will continue to talk about these issues moving forward as a school." And this is really key. She says, "I see her turn as necessary, not optional. The girls here now are confident and carry themselves with the knowledge that they're equal to boys and they can accomplish what they commit themselves to." Don't they look empowered and happy? Okay, CREATE is the last program I want to tell you about. In April of 2013, this organization got a grant for $50,431 to be distributed over 2 years. It is titled, the project was titled Self-Sufficiency for Village Women in Tienabon, Senegal. And the objectives of the proposal that they submitted were to provide a potable water system, including a solar-powered pump, an irrigation system, materials, tools, and training for cooperative community gardens, and training on fuel-efficient cook stoves that would reduce firewood consumption by 50%, training in materials in poultry raising, and conducting leadership training to support self-sufficiency for women and girls. So they got the first part of the money in September of 2013, and they immediately set about getting the garden ready, and they got ready to dig the well, and they hit rock. And so they couldn't drill through the rock, which is a problem. Fortunately, they were given some land, and that land they were able to put a pump to drill the well on that property so they could continue. They got the solar-powered pumping system installed. They got the garden done. You can see them watering the seedlings there. They organized 80 women into 6 cooperative groups to get that vegetable garden going, and they got an irrigation system that put water into those cement tanks so that they didn't have to go so far to get water. They put a tap in the village so the women had access to water for their households. And they started teaching women how to build these efficient cook stoves. Doesn't that woman look just so happy? She said, Kuumba Diop, I'm probably not pronouncing her name right. She says, "Now I only use 1 stick of wood to cook a meal, and I'm no longer afraid of fire breaking out in my kitchen." Nagon Diop boasts, "We know how to build an improved cook stove that saves so much firewood. I built 1 stove, and I use it all the time." The improved cook stoves help us and benefit the environment too. And I love this. She says, I plan to teach my sister who lives in another village how to build her own cook stove. So there are no telling how many women outside of this village are going to benefit from learning how to build new cook stoves. So this is just an example of, and these reports are posted. If you go to our website and you look for a program that we funded, as soon as we get these program reports, these follow-up reports, we post them on the page, the programs page, so you can see them and read them yourself. So Dining for Women is focused on organizational priorities that are going to keep us strong so that we can continue to see results like this, support more growth, fund more programs, and see even greater impact. And we've created the beginning of a strategic plan. These are the 4 initiatives on our strategic plan so far. And I realized as I read it, you know, attracting, engaging, retaining, and mobilizing members sounds so boring. What we really want to do is build a vibrant membership base. We want to give you the support you need in your chapters to be even stronger and more vibrant. So we're going to be sending out some surveys, doing focus groups, and hearing from you what you need and want and how we can help you. We also want to increase some of the opportunities for engagement. So an example of that would be our travel program. We're going to expand the travel program. We want to begin to look at an advocacy program. How can we advocate? Yes, we fund money. We're supporting grassroots organizations, and we want to create change from the grassroots level, but we also want to create change from the top down because it takes both at the policy level and at the grassroots level to see change. We want to strengthen the leadership support all across the country with the regional leader system and chapter leaders, so leadership development is something we'll be looking at, as well as making sure that the educational materials meet your needs. We're always trying to refine and improve the process of grant selection and making sure that we get the information from the follow-up reports to you. We have built a new website, and the communication is always, we don't want to communicate too often. We want to get you the information you need in a way that is a way that you want to receive it. We want to provide educational opportunities beyond the program material. So we've started doing Google Hangouts with the founders of each program each month, and you can go to the program page. The Google Hangout for each month's program is, you can link to it from the home page. We record those, and it's so exciting to hear about the programs from the founders or the program directors themselves, right, instead of just reading it. So that's a really exciting way to share information of the programs with your chapters. And then, you know, assuring organizational vibrancy is, you know, board development, processes and systems in the office to make sure that we're transparent and efficient, fundraising, all that kind of stuff that really is boring from a membership standpoint, but it's crucial to make sure that Dining for Women is an organization that you can be proud to be part of, that we exercise best practices in everything, and that you can feel comfortable that we are being responsible with the trust that you place in us in selecting programs and dispersing your money. Which brings me to understanding the finances of Dining for Women. So every dollar that you donate, 85 cents goes to the program. 15 cents or 15% is for Dining for Women administrative expenses. We have an office and 5 full-time employees and some part-time employees. So, you know, from the days where we sat around my kitchen table and everything, 100% of everything went to the programs, you know, to be able to get the scale that we want, we can't do that anymore. So the 15% of program revenue that supports the operating expense of Dining for Women only covers 29% of all of our operating expenses. Does that make sense? So we have to raise the other 2/3 from other methods. One is our 13th month campaign, where from September to December every year we ask members to donate above and beyond what they donate to programs, and all of that goes to support our administrative expenses. Chapters do fundraising events. We have grants. We get some grants from family foundations, and we've started getting some planned gifts. You know, the first chapter leader who gave me a letter that said that she had put Dining for Women in her will just really took my breath away, and I actually got really emotional about it, because what that means is that she sees and has confidence that Dining for Women is going to be around for the long term. This woman is my age, and she put us in her will. Hopefully it's going to be a long time before that planned gift comes in. So, you know, focusing on supporting Dining for Women so we can create the impact we want is important, and I'll be happy to answer other questions about that if you have them later. These pictures are pictures of our Dining for Women members on trips. The top left is in Nepal, and the top right is in Nepal too. And the bottom one is from our recent trip last year to Indonesia. And, you know, education through the materials that we read each month and the DVDs broaden our understanding of the issues intellectually. But what really connects us is the love and compassion that we feel for women that we're learning about. And, you know, you don't have to go to another country to visit one of the programs to get that sense of connection. But the reason that I love these pictures is because they illustrate what so many of us feel as we're sitting around at one of our Dining for Women dinners, learning about the women that we're supporting. And as we feel that connection, we're transformed. And our transformation becomes global transformation. I love Marianne Williamson's quote. She says, "Personal transformation can and does have global effects. As we go, so goes the world, for the world is us." So that brings me back to our vision of a world where millions of lives have been transformed and poverty has been reduced, because we're focusing on assuring gender equality. I love that picture. Because together we are powerful. Collective giving is a powerful model of philanthropy. But collective action and awareness is too. So every time you tell somebody about an issue that you've learned about, or a project that we're supporting, or an organization that's doing transformational work around the world, you're spreading the mission and you're increasing other people's awareness. And, you know, just imagine, I envision Dining for Women as women with their hands connected that just circle the globe. And the Dining for Women as we exist today is the tip of an iceberg for what we can be. Can you imagine 10 years from now the impact that we can have if we have, I don't know how many more chapters, but how much more, as we grow, how many more lives we can really impact. Thank you so much for your commitment to women and girls around the world. And I have to tell you how much I appreciate the fact that, given the myriad ways that there are to get involved, that you select Dining for Women as your choice of way to spend your money and your time is just heartwarming to me and the women and girls around the world that we impact. So thank you so much for all that you do and for being here tonight. We have a few minutes for questions and answers. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Yes. No, not usually. Now, there is an organization that we had funded in the past called One Heart Worldwide, and originally they were working in Tibet, but then the Tibetan government wouldn't let them stay, so they moved to Nepal. But when we went to Nepal, we didn't go visit them in Tibet, but we have never been on a trip in a country where we've had any problems. Mm-mm. Yes. No, and the reason is that if you go back to the mission of assuring gender equality, and you think about the kind of inequality that we're talking about, girls who are denied access to education and they're forced to get married as early as 8 years old, and they're having babies at 12, and there are no battered women's shelters or soup kitchens or any support. And you compare that to the level of gender inequality in the United States, there's such a vast difference that we are completely focused on international projects. When the inspiration for Dining for Women first hit me, it was with that international focus, and we've never wavered from that. And the longer time goes by and the more we learn about really empowering women around the world is the moral challenge of our time. I'm really convinced that we are targeting in an area that does not get anywhere near enough funding as it is. Yes. Okay, so I'll just tell you briefly what our criteria is for being funded. The organizations all have to have either a U.S.-based nonprofit or a fiscal sponsor. So the organizations that we fund are mostly U.S.-based organizations with projects around the world. And they learn about us through either some of our members who recommend them, or we publicize every time a grant application cycle opens up. We publicize on Chronicle of Philanthropy and other websites. And then we've been making grants long enough now that for organizations that have grant writers and they go do research, Dining for Women will pop up as a source of funding for projects of this kind. So our criteria are that the organizations are not politically or religiously affiliated. They have to have a U.S.-based 501c3 or a fiscal sponsor that is. The project has to be for women or girls. We look at the percentage of women's leadership in the organization at the board level, on the ground, in the country where they're working. We look at organizations that are grassroots, and our definition of grassroots is a project that listens to the voices and the expressed needs of the community that they will be serving. So the women say what the communities say what they need. We're not going in there just telling them what they need and setting up something. We're responding to their expressed needs. We look at the diversity of their donor base so that we're not the only source of funding that they have, and myriad other criteria. And then we have a volunteer committee that's led by our program director, who's a staff person. And twice a year we get grant applications. And the last cycle, the first flood that we got was there were 101 letters of intent that we got, and we can only fund 6. And we vary each month to focus on a different region of the world and a different issue that impacts women. So once we get all these great organizations, a lot of them pass all the criteria and they're really awesome. And then we have to balance out the geographic variety and the issues. And that can get tricky sometimes too. We have a travel program, and this year we're only doing 2. Next year we'll do probably 4 trips, and we go to visit projects that we have previously funded in different parts of the world. So we've taken 13 trips to 10 different countries since 2007. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She asked how we have a level of funding that's called sustained funding. So we fund one major project each month, and that's what the educational materials are all about. And that's the big grant that's usually $35,000 or $45,000 a month. The sustained funding is an additional grant we give each month that's $15,000. And each month it's to a project we have previously funded, and they get that grant for 3 years in a row. And that is in answer to the question that we would get, and we wanted to meet this need. What happens if you only give one grant? You know, it's $45,000. It's like the flash in the pan. How do you keep, what about these programs who need continued support? So as we began to grow and raise more money, we could expand the funding model to include this as a way to support organizations that we know are, based on the reports that we get from them, some of them that we've been to visit, are doing really great work, and it's our way to continue to support them. Each month, like so the project in January of 2013 will get $15,000 in January 2013, 2014, and 2015. The project in February 2013 gets it February 2013, 14, and 15. Does that make sense? The only 3 months of the year we don't do sustained funding is in the summer, and that's because fewer chapters meet in the summer and our program revenue is a little bit lower. And so we didn't want to commit to that $60,000 in grants when we know our program revenue is lower in the summer. Yes? Mm-hmm. That's a really great question. And there are 2 answers to that. Our criteria for the projects that we fund are 25-75. So if they spend more than 25% of their total revenue on their administrative expenses, they fall outside of our criteria. We require that they be 25% or less. And then for the grants that we provide, we give restricted grants, which means that the grant proposals that are submitted don't cover U.S. administrative expenses for these organizations. We're only funding programmatic expenses for the projects that we're funding. Does that make sense? So that that's their administrative cost, but of our grant that we give them, none of the grant we give them covers any of their administrative costs in the U.S. Okay, so every organization has their own operating expenses that they have to cover. We ask for the information just to see what their financial state is. We read their financial reports. And on their financial reports, they have to file a 990, an IRS tax form. We look at what percentage they spend on administrative expenses for their organization overall. So we don't fund it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention and for your support of Dining for Women. And if you think of any other questions, I'll be around for a little bit. Thank you.